Good morning, good day, and good evening. Welcome to episode 159 of Tech of a Tea. And, okay, hasn't been enough time yet. Give it a couple more seconds. I can now say fuck. I'm not monetizing this channel anyway. But YouTube decided to do something actually good for once. I know, considering, getting rid of dislikes, the YouTube studio being, well, the YouTube studio it currently is, and all manner of other changes that YouTube tends to make, it's very rare that I can say that the platform genuinely, that's the word, genuinely makes a good change. You had the actual shorts revenue split where, you would make money. It's not good money, but you would make money from shorts. And now they actually reverted something that people were not very happy about. This comes from Creator Liaison, who posts things that come from YouTube internally. YouTube doing video. Like the videos that nobody actually sees that YouTube uploads. Like they will upload videos to their channel, to the studio, things like that. They'll get like 3,000 views. This page, just gets that information out there. As of today, all curse words are no longer treated the same. So, under the new policy, if you dropped, an N-bomb, if you said fuck, if you said butthole, all of these are treated the same way. Now, they're not. This is sensible. Like, imagine your video, like, this is how ridiculous it was. You can just be saying, like, very light profanity, like hell, like butthole, like, that's treated as if it's, like, a gangster rap music video. Like, that, those are two very different things. Like, if your interest is on the effect that profanity is going to have, which I think is just dumb to begin with, like, I really don't see any reason to try to restrict like, it's just, yeah. It's not going to go well. People are going to find ways to get around it. And if they don't find ways to get around it, it doesn't actually stop anything. It just moves it somewhere that isn't on YouTube. Anyway. Now they're no longer going to be treated as if they are the same thing. This is good. Moderate profanity anytime can get the green icon. So green icon being the video is monetized. So as it stood with the policy they introduced in January, you could be monetized if you did use a lot of profanity, but it was sort of like a lot harsher in how they were approaching it. Like, they were sort of really really cracking down, that's the word, cracking down on how much you could swear, which is dumb, also because there is YouTube Kids. Like, I get it. I think that's dumb as well. Like, kids are going to hear profanity at some point. I don't really care about profanity. Doesn't really matter. I swore as a kid. Most people swear as a kid. You'll, find out profanity about some point. But if you're going to care about profanity in this idea of, it's offensive, things like that, you have YouTube Kids. YouTube Kids is the place where that shouldn't exist. Fair. But regular YouTube, when there are gangster rap videos on YouTube, you can't really say that, like, saying fuck is that bad when there's so much worse on the platform. I don't think gangster rap is bad, for the record, but, like, when there's so much worse in that regard, just basically saying fuck in a video doesn't really matter. F-bomb in the first 7 seconds. I don't know if this is just an F-bomb or they include other. Probably if you drop an N-bomb. Probably if you say a couple other words. But F-bomb in the first 7 seconds, I thought it was first 15 seconds, or repeatedly, can receive limited ads. So if you swear at the start, you can still be monetized, but it'll be reduced monetization. So I do think this idea is kind of dumb. Like, the reason why they care so much about the first 7 seconds, I think before there was something, maybe it's the violence guideline they have where it's first 15 seconds. The reason why they care so much about the first couple of seconds is this is when most people click off a video. I can show you my metrics, actually. We'll pick a video that actually did well. Let's see. Okay, when YouTube is going to load. Now, it was working fine just before. And now that I actually want to demonstrate something, nope. Now, okay, there we go. Now it's going to work. This video, yeah, that'll work. Analytics. What do we want? Audience? What is it under? Engagement. Yes, engagement. Here we go. So, this graph here shows you, like, when people click off a video, like, how far they watch through it, things like that. 22% watched all the way to the end. Jesus Christ. So, if you see here, actually, if you're listening, you won't see it, but for anyone seeing this, the bar starts at 100%. It actually starts at 101 because their metrics are broken and they can never actually count them properly. But it starts at 100%, assuming it works. And then within the first, within the first 10 seconds, 15% of people already click off the video. Within the first, let's say, minute, 25% have already clicked off. And generally, videos trend down the longer they go. You usually want this to be sort of as flat as possible. But this is a pretty typical graph. I can show you another one for... Actually, let's go with the video that did... Let's go with, like, my top video. I think it was the LTT video. One of the LTT videos. Oh my god, it's actually going to take forever. Here we go. No, it was It was a different video, but related to LTT. Let's go with the LTT video and also my top video then. So if we go to engagement and engagement over here. Yeah, okay, here we go. So this is my video about when PopOS fixed the bug that was brought up in the LTT video. Basically the same graph. This one did fall down a little bit quicker. I wasn't as good at making videos back then. Also, I had like a hard drop off at the end because I used to have a really long outro that I've sort of smoothed out now. And yeah. And then this video. Okay, this video is really good in this regard. So I had an average watch time of 8 minutes. I was going to say 8.5 minutes, then I forgot how many seconds are in a minute. This is a really good graph. Now, some of these jumps here are probably from timestamps in a video, maybe someone like jumping back in a video, things like that. This is what you ultimately want. This is probably what it looks like in a MrBeast video. Mine, generally not that good, but still not like dropping off hard. Either way, the point I was getting at here is no matter what the video is, even this video, which, you know, did do really well, like, a lot of people dropped off. It actually dropped off harder than some of the videos it just maintained longer. 40% of the people were gone in the first minute. In this one, we were still at 75%, but it dropped by the end to be lower. So it's like, it sort of depends on how you want to look at the metrics. Either way, the start of the video is incredibly important for retention, and this is generally where advertisers really care about. Whether it's an advertiser who's advertising through YouTube or an advertiser advertising with a YouTube creator. Either way, the start of the video, very important. Next thing. Background music with profanity can now get ads. Now, speaking of the gangster rap stuff I mentioned earlier, I don't believe any of that was ever demonetized. I think music videos are always this weird one where if you're using music in your video, you might get demonetized for it because it's treated as part of like a regular video. But a music video, they're treated as this own separate thing where the rules generally don't apply. Like the same thing with the violence, the violence guideline they had. There's a lot of music videos that are incredibly violent, but I don't think any of them ever got demonetized. There's a lot of gangster rap videos where they're just, you know, they're gangster rap. So they're full of profanity, which I don't think ever got demonetized. But luckily, you know, if you're, you know, streaming, for example, and you have something going on in the background, that should be fine. Profanity in title/thumb still can't run ads. This is one that I think it's kind of dumb, but I also think even if you were allowed to do it, you probably shouldn't do it anyway. I think if you're going to use profanity in your videos, generally, you know, a lot of videos, people add it as sort of the same as an as an R. I just say or R because I'm pretty bad at it, or you'll hear me laugh at something. But there's a lot of people out there who will like say fuck or something like that to fill out a sentence. Yeah, and when it comes to like your title, if you're going to use profanity, save it for the video where it's going to have the most impact. Don't just waste it like this. This is kind of dumb. I kind of wish it was still monetized, but like with the idea of the no F-bomb in the first 7 seconds, I get it. Like, it makes sense why you're doing that. I believe there's some other stuff that was mentioned by a creator liaison as well. Yeah, here we go. Yes, videos that received a yellow icon after November. Did I say January? I meant November. After the November update will be re-reviewed by March 10th, and if they go green after this update, that new status will be reflected in Studio. So this is going to be applied retroactively, like the last policy was applied retroactively. Basically, they're mostly reverting what they did. This is still a little bit stricter than YouTube originally was, but this is sort of the way that most people kind of interpreted YouTube. Most people understood you shouldn't swear at the start of your video. You will still be monetized, but it might hurt you in the algorithm. Keep it out of your thumbnail, things like that. But now it's just in stone that you can and can't do that. Old videos get re-reviewed because brands want to put new ads on them. Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's not like if a video is a year old, it just no longer has ads on it. That's just not how that goes down. Videos, as long as they are on YouTube, as long as people are watching them, there is going to be some sort of ad that generally gets played on them, assuming that, you know, everyone who's watching it doesn't happen to be using ad block, which, you know, is probably, when there's like 3 people watching something, yeah, it might just be entirely ad block. But I think this is pretty much just an all-round good change. I do have my concerns over what they mean by moderate. That's the only thing I'm a bit wary of, like what they actually mean by moderate profanity. Do they mean like what's the guideline here? Is it a number of words stringed together? Is it like multiple words within a certain time frame? If I'm getting tilted playing God of War, is that a problem? Like, what exactly does moderate mean here? Obviously, they've made it vague so that they can apply the rules when they need to apply the rules. But it's not the best. Also, the reason why it's vague is if you have like, you can swear once per minute every other minute, let's say. I don't know why I chose that, but let's just say that's what it is. Then people can like meta game this and be like, okay, I can swear here, I can swear here. Like, it's a dumb way of trying to approach it, but you can meta game avoiding getting banned when there are very clear guidelines on what is and is not a bannable offense. This is why a lot of platforms generally don't include like examples of a bannable offense. Say if it's, you know, toxicity in FF14, for example. There's not clear guidelines on what is and what is not toxic behavior. There are some things that are laid out, but they are laid out along with a general expansive guideline. Like in PvP, for example, if someone spams good game or good match, whatever it is, like at the start of a match or after the entire team gets wiped, because you can't use regular chat in FF14, at least with Crystalline Conflict, you can with Frontline, things like that, but in Crystalline Conflict, you have to use the pre-made sentences, so you can't just, you know, curse someone out there, but you can do other things that are kind of annoying, especially when the chat in Crystalline Conflict does have like a little bell that plays. So if someone spams it, it gets it gets really annoying. Or you have people that are just choosing to stand in the base and never leave it. Obviously, if you DC, that's one thing, but, you know, team wipes, you stand in the base and then refuse to participate. That's also generally considered relatively toxic. But these are things that are laid out. But then there's also these other things, like this general expansive set of rules, which can catch other cases which may not be caught by those things. This is pretty standard, and the only thing that's an issue with what's going on here is there's been no mention. Consider this did happen 6 hours ago, 9 hours ago. This did happen 9 hours ago, so maybe things will change. But there is also the violence guidelines, where, if I can find it, is it violent or graphic content? Is that what this is? Where most of it is reasonable. Can I find it anywhere? Maybe if I go to news. YouTube stuff that starts on that. I can't find the... Okay, I can't find it. Wait. Here we go. From Venture B. I've never heard of these guys, assuming they know what they're doing. They include nothing. What many games will we find? Is this it? Is this one we're looking for? Advertiser-friendly guidelines. Is this the actual guidelines itself? Wait. Where? Violence. Here we go. So, content showing dead bodies without context. Fair enough. That should be demonetized. I do agree there. If there is context, like, this is, say, some sort of, like, CSI type show on YouTube. There's your context. If you'll say, which of the polls was it? Was it Logan? Jake? Which one went to Japan and filmed a dead body? Whichever one did that, that would not be allowed. Totally fair. Game violence directed at a real named person or acts that's created to intentionally shock and disgust. And videos showing an implied moment of death will not receive ad revenue. And videos showing implied moment of death. So this is about a real person. If this is directed at a real person, I do think that's reasonable. The second part is the one that's a bit more of a problem. Standard gameplay where gory injuries are present after the first 8 seconds, non-graphic tragedies, and their aftermath, or police seizures as part of law enforcement can receive ad revenue. But even though this one wasn't like that crazy of a policy, it was implemented in a fairly strict way. And a lot of channels just got demonetized without really any clear reason why. Like, it seemed like it should be fine. It wasn't like, just gore for the sake of gore. Like, it was in the context of a video game. It's Dead Space. It's what's another gory game? I'm blanking. I don't play that many gory games. I'm completely blank. God of War. Like, some of the early God of War games, you, like, fucking tear people apart. Doom. That's a great example, actually. Doom. Things like that. People are getting demonetized for videos about games like that, which didn't really make any sense, because it's a video game. Like, it's one thing if you want to make it, like, above a certain age to watch this video. Fair. It's above a certain age to buy the game. Above a certain age to watch the video makes sense. But simply not being monetized altogether doesn't make any sense. Especially, like, the whole idea about not receiving monetization for adult content just doesn't really make any sense to me. There is advertising on basically everything on the internet, like, from porn sites to, like, fucking piracy sites to everything else, to YouTube, to everything in between. There is advertising. I think the only issue is that certain of the more mainstream advertising, like the Cokes, the Pepsis, KFC, things like that, don't exactly want to be in the same space as some of those, not necessarily like straight up porn ads, like meet sexy singles in your area, like not necessarily that, but some of the more, less savory ads that maybe you'll find on sites like that. I'm sure you can work out things what I'm talking about, like, just, things that may not be crazy bad, but they probably wouldn't fit in YouTube and might create like another adpocalypse if they were on YouTube. I think that's probably like one of the big reasons why that doesn't happen. But to be fair, YouTube does just have ridiculous advertising anyway. If I look up YouTube, not safe for work, AI ad. Is there, can I find them? I can't find these ads, but I've been seeing these ads over like the past, I don't know, like month or two. Oh, wait, here we go. This is someone posting it on Twitter. AI generated sexy anime girl. AI create not safe for work pics. AI art generator. Anime art. Not safe for work comics. Basically, there's these ads for these AI art generators to make hentai that are just being advertised on YouTube. I have no idea, like, how these are even getting approved as ads, because it's not like they're trying to hide it, right? Like, they straight up include terms that shouldn't even be allowed on YouTube advertising. They'll say things like not safe for work, hentai. It's like, how in the world do you see those terms and you're not like, okay, maybe we should get rid of this ad. Maybe we shouldn't let this one happen. You know, it's one thing when it tries to hide it, like it hides it in an image, which I know YouTube has text recognition from images, so there's no excuse for that. But they'll hide it in an image. Maybe they'll like sort of be kind of wary about how they phrase it. But when they straight up just say this application makes hentai, like like when they just tell you, why is that being approved? Like how does that get approved? Money is the answer. The answer is money. And no one was really paying too much attention to it, so yeah. That's pretty much it. I got distracted by seeing I can't show this because it's pixelated, but it's not pixelated enough where if you saw it, it wouldn't trigger the YouTube the YouTube ID system. It was just this article about people making AI porn. I'm going to click off of that because I'm getting very distracted now. Yeah. How do we get here? Right. YouTube ads. AI. Something. You know, I'm just gonna leave that behind. We'll talk about something about AI, though. So, my sister went back for I think it's a third year of university a couple weeks ago. And she has no idea about most of what's going on in the tech world. Like, she's not, completely incompetent with it. But she's not got, like, a finger on the pulse paying attention to what's going on. Didn't even know the Mario movie was coming out. Like, so, interested in other things, but still has a general understanding of how tech works. And she went back to uni, and in, I think, every single one of her classes, they specifically mentioned ChatGPT. They specifically mentioned that if you are caught using ChatGPT, you are just going to fail the assignment. Like, it's instant fail. Which is probably for the best. The problem is there are tools right now that are used to detect plagiarism, to detect AI text generation. Like Turnitin. Turnitin is one of those tools that's been around for a very long time, and I've fucking had lecturers who are like, if your Turnitin comparison rating is above 15%, then you fail. Turnitin was a bit sort of messy, especially when there are things where it's like there's one or two correct ways to say something, and when we're talking about something that's maybe 1,000, 2,000 words, it's pretty easy to get to that threshold without actually copying things. Like if it's quotes, if it's excerpts that should be the same, if it's like specific terminology phrased in a certain way, it's pretty easy to get to that number. I would not be surprised if there are people, and I know I've seen posts on Reddit about this, I don't know how true they are, but if there are people that are getting sort of hit up with plagiarism, what do you call it, like, marks against them, I guess, where they're not actually using ChatGPT. I know I had this happen to some of my mates years back with some programming stuff where it was so fucking stupid. This lecturer was an absolute moron, and I don't know how they even still had a job. So, also, they weren't even a programmer. Like, that's the thing. They were running a course involving programming, but they weren't a programmer. They were a designer. So they were in no position to say that someone was cheating here. So what happened back then is they had, I think it was like it wasn't an algorithms class. No, because with algorithms, there's like a couple of ways to do it. And everyone will be marked for plagiarism. I think it was my C++ class. It might have been that or another one where we were making a game. The exact thing doesn't matter. Either way, there were a lot of ways to do something, but for some of it, there were, maybe like a handful of sensible ways. Like, you could, write code in any way you want, but the most logical path is only going to send you down, like, a couple of different directions. And in this, they used the same variables, but it wasn't crazy variable names where it'd be weird to be called up for it. Like, I think one of the variable names that they got called up on was the use of I in their loop. Like, this is what I mean by this person shouldn't have been running a class involving programming. If you're going to say someone's plagiarizing because they use I in a loop, they're like, why are you using I? Explain why you're using I. Like, I is an incrementer. Like, this is standard fare when you're doing a loop. And that was just one example, but there were some other variables where there were, only like a couple of things that made sense to name that variable, unless you're just going to give it some, like, stupid name. And I think they might have been called up for using the same style of casing or something. And there was just little things where anybody who was, actually a programmer, they would see this and be like, no, this is obviously not plagiarism. They just came to the same result. But no, they got called up for plagiarism on this. They had to, like, go to the fucking plagiarism board, prove that I don't know what the board's called, the academic integrity board, prove that they didn't plagiarize it. I think one of them ended up still having to, like, redo the assignment or something, or they got a 0 on the assignment. It was really dumb. But, like, stuff like that can happen without... This was years, for the record, years before things like GitHub Copilot existed. This was, like, a good, how long have I been out of uni? 4 or 5 years. It was, like, a while ago. I have no idea when I graduated uni. I've literally no fucking clue. Yeah, I got no answer. But like a while ago. And that was before the AI generation stuff. So now that we have it, and now these tools are getting sensitive to the AI generation, there are absolutely people who write text that is in that same sort of style and is gonna be framed in a way that is going to get picked up by tools like ChatGPT, by like Turnitin or whatever other tools are being used that are trying to detect ChatGPT. I do feel bad for any students that do get caught up in this. My suggestion is whatever you're trying to do, whether it's document creation, source code creation, design work's not really there where it needs to really matter right now. But maybe even like an art class, for example, like a digital art class, keep records of the steps between what you're doing. With programming, this is easy. Make use of Git. With document creation, tools like Word, tools like Google Docs, I think LibreOffice does it as well, can maintain, I actually don't know. I know that Word and Google Docs do, can maintain like a history of your changes. And if you get caught up on that, then yeah, it becomes like you can just show them that, and if they're like, no, you're still cheating, then they're fucking morons. But with art creation, just create. I don't know if the art tools do the same thing. I know they'll have history like when it's a current version of the document, but I don't know if any of them will maintain like a history of changes between saves. But if they don't, just maintain a history of files at different steps, and if anyone ever calls you up on it, just show them the steps and you're good to go. As I said, there will be some dumb people who will still try to like mark you as fail, but there's nothing you can really do about that. And if it gets that bad, well, like there's just nothing. If they won't literally see the fact that there are these steps that got here, then there's nothing that can be done there. Just accept that your class is being run by some of the dumbest people on the planet. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully you don't get caught up with this. Hopefully your writing is like mine and is terrible, so no one thinks it is AI generated, because it's bad, and AI generation is good. What I'm saying is just be shit at class, and no one thinks you're plagiarizing. I say this, but I think I graduated with like a 6 point... the GPA system in Australia is based out of 7. I don't have over 100% GPA. 6.55 or something. I'm fucking... Oh, doesn't matter. There's a reason why I didn't start my YouTube channel earlier, and didn't start streaming, didn't start the podcast earlier. I went through most of university having fucking zero life. I would spend like 12 hours a day working on uni assignments. I didn't like do anything on the weekend for years, until it was like, you know, the break between semesters. I did fucking nothing. I would not recommend it. It's not worth it. To be fair, I'm not really using my degree. I'm making videos on the internet, so don't take my word for it. Maybe it makes sense to do all that hard work if you're actually going to get a job using your degree. Hey, I can say that I'm technically using it because, you know, it's software engineering adjacent. Like, I am system administrator adjacent, which is software engineer adjacent. Therefore, I'm using it. Yeah. Which is what I tell myself when my mum bothers me about whether I'm gonna get an actual job. Because I'm probably not. Unless this fails. Unless all this YouTube stuff falls apart, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing and sort of see where it goes. But speaking of seeing where it goes, I feel like that's how Elon is running Twitter right now. So, how a single engineer brought down Twitter. Elon Musk's steep layoffs have left Twitter with so few engineers that only one person was on a major project involving the platform's API. So, there have been some massive shutdowns of the platform recently. January 3rd, Android users temporarily couldn't load new tweets. February 8th, an error message that told users they were over a daily limit. February 15th, tweets stopped loading. February 18th, timeline broke and replies disappeared. March 1st, timeline stopped working. And then, what was it? Like, I think March 6th, March 5th, the platform broke again. Where is it in this document? Right. So, in many ways, so this was on, the last outage was on Monday, which would have been, the 5th or something. 5th or 6th. Where is it? So, I lost. I lost that shit. Where is it? This type of outage has become so frequent that I think we're all numb to it, a current employee says. And those are only the service outages. Other issues, such as the one that led Musk tweets to be more visible on time. Oh, yeah, right. When when they changed the way that tweet promotion worked, and everybody, no matter whether they're following Elon or not, was seeing nothing but his tweets. That was a fun time as well. In many ways, Wait, there is a quote in... I should have found the quote and, like, highlighted or something. Here it is. So, the change in question, this is the API change, was part of a project to shut down free access to the Twitter API, which, for the record, still hasn't happened, has been delayed 3 times now. 3 times? 2 times? No, I think it's been delayed 3 times. On February 1st, the company announced it will no longer support free access to its API, which effectively ended the existence of third-party clients. I know it's still working because my cross-poster with Mastodon still works, and dramatically limited the ability of outside researchers to study the network. The company's been building a new paid API for developers to work with. I have extreme doubts they're building a new paid API, considering how many times they've tried to mess with the API with the shutdown. I think it's the same API. And when they try to do something, they just push it out to the live system and just hope nothing goes badly. I don't know this for a fact, and if someone happens to see this who's working at Twitter right now, does Twitter still have, like, a test environment? Because it seems like every time a major change happens to the platform, it's just pushed out and breaks it. Like, completely shuts down the platform. It feels like they don't have a test environment right now and are using the live system as their test environment. But in a sign of just how deep Elon Musk cuts the company have been, only one site reliability engineer has been staffed on the API project. On Monday, the engineer made a bad configuration change that basically broke the Twitter API. The change had cascading consequences inside the company, bringing down much of Twitter's internal tools, along with the public-facing APIs. This is a big part that indicates to me that they don't have a test environment. Like, sure, bad configuration changes can make their way out to the live system, without a doubt. But most of the time, things like this will be caught. But I guess if you're the one reliability engineer, you're the one person who needs to sign off on whether your work is good, which doesn't exactly make you a reliability engineer, it just makes you a regular engineer. So, on Slack, engineers responded with variations of crap and Twitter is down. Twitter's down the entire thing as they scrambled to fix the problem. Musk was furious, we're told. Here we go. Here's a fun part. So, Elon Musk tweeted this. Also, Lex Friedman said, replied as well, which is hilarious. I love Lex. Lex is a great podcast. A small API change had massive ramifications. The code stack is extremely brittle for no good reason. We'll ultimately need a complete rewrite. So, because of a configuration change that was probably done without a test environment, the solution to that is burn it to the ground and rebuild it. Now, the problem with burning it to the ground and rebuilding it is if you don't know why it's so bad, what you're going to build is going to be as, if not worse. You don't just throw away your entire software stack because of a single problem. You work out why those problems exist and then deal with the pieces of the stack as they need to be dealt with. I think Mudahar was the one who described Elon like this. Elon feels a lot like one of those middle managers who sort of just shows up in the office, not really knowing what's going on. Also saying things like, code stack is extremely brittle. It's just like you're throwing in tech words for the sake of it. But it's kind of like one of those middle managers who just show up in the office and they don't really know what's going on. Like, they think they know what's going on, but they don't actually know. So you just say, like, the code's rendering. We're defragging the code base. Just you throw out terms that make it seem like you're doing something productive, and they're like, yes, good job, keep doing that. That's how it feels like Elon kind of is right now, where he's great at certain things, like, Tesla, great company, the AI stuff, the like self-driving, great at making flamethrowers, great at all these things, but I don't think he knows what he's doing when it comes to running a social media platform. And every time something new happens to this service, it leads me to believe that he's kind of just winging it, and just, it hasn't fallen apart completely yet. He hasn't fired enough people where the platform just completely collapses in on itself. But it seems like he's getting pretty close. He's running out of reliability engineers to fire. Like, you can't get rid of this guy. If he's like the only one who's involved in the API project, you can't get rid of him. You don't have anyone to replace him. But to give a more of an indication on how much the site is collapsing, last year, it's great this existed. Last year, Twitter gave the ability to access the platform through Tor. Some websites have this. A lot of news websites will have this. And sure, it's still accessing Twitter through Tor, so if you log in, you're still giving Twitter your data. But if you don't, you're just examining the website. Being able to access through Tor was great, and for certain people was incredibly important for, accessing Twitter. You can argue that accessing Twitter is not incredibly important, but hey, let's just go with Twitter being important. Now, here's the important part. Heavy emphasis on that, could access Twitter through Tor. You can't anymore. Twitter just let its privacy and security protecting Tor service expire. The Tor project says it's contacted Twitter about renewing the site's certificate. So if we go to the Onion site address, let's check it right now. You can't see this, but if I window capture, you're seeing my notes right now. And we go privacy error? Where's the window? The fuck is the window? This one? Yes, here we go. Your connection is not private. Attackers might be trying to steal your information from the Onion address here. For example, passwords, messages, or credit cards. Cert date invalid. They let the cert expire, so the cert doesn't work. You can no longer use Twitter on Tor. Now, the Tor project did try to contact them. Here is the problem, though. I can't spell. Tor project. Here is the problem, though. So Twitter no longer has a communications department to ask about the change. The Onion site is no longer available, seemingly with no plans to renew it. The Tor project has reached out to Twitter to look into bringing the Onion version of the social media platform back online. Said communications director, I'm just adding in words, communications director Pavel Lazonev in a statement. People who rely on Onion services for an extra layer of protection and guarantee that they are accessing the content they are looking for now have one fewer way of doing so. You can still visit twitter.com via a browser running Tor, but you won't get the added benefits a Tor-specific Onion site offers. Despite the Tor project's efforts to reach Twitter and resurrect the service, its future doesn't seem rosy. The people who built it, at least those I interacted with, are all gone. Security engineer Alec Muffet, who helped launch the service last year, told The Verge over Twitter direct message. I'm pretty sure it's going to stop working totally at some point unless Elon takes an interest. Twitter has slashed its headcount in multiple rounds of layoffs, including members of core operational teams, and it's had problems with the basic stability of the main site, let alone its Tor alternative. It seems to me that I wouldn't be surprised if Elon didn't even know that the Tor aspect even existed. I don't think this is even Elon just not liking Tor. I feel like he didn't even know that Twitter had a Tor portal to access it, and just let it expire and fired everyone on the team because, I don't know, maybe they just didn't have enough production in some other aspect that he felt like was really important. So, yeah. lots of things are going great over at Twitter, let alone the fact they want to do the whole Twitter 2.0 thing. Twitter 2.0. Where the idea is to, like, make a super application? Where is some stuff about it? The everything app. Yeah, he wants to make Twitter into the everything apps. Kind of like, what's the app in China? China everything app. WeChat. Yeah. Like, the difference with WeChat, though, is WeChat doesn't have to compete with YouTube. It doesn't have to compete with Facebook. It doesn't have to compete with Uber or Lyft or anything else out there because it's China. So if China says, this is the service you're going to use, this is the service you're going to use. Twitter does not have that, like, that benefit. Building an everything app in a more open society would work if those tools didn't already exist. But, like, the idea of turning Twitter into an everything app means you need to replace YouTube. You need to replace Facebook and Uber and all this other stuff, which is not going to happen. Like, I feel like Twitter can absolutely bring some of these aspects into the platform. Like, they are working on doing creator monetization if you pay them first. Creator monetization for uploading videos. And they're working on all these other little things, but I don't think they're ever going to end up taking over the position the existing incumbents are already in. Like, you would need to do something so much better, and I just don't see that. Like, with the way that Twitter is being so mismanaged right now, I just don't see that happening. Like, maybe it could happen. It's entirely possible, but I have my doubts. I'm just enjoying watching the Twitter, let's call it a dumpster fire. The Twitter dumpster fire continue to burn and shoot out new little interesting bits of trash as the fire continues to rage on. Maybe one day the fire will die down and we'll see what's left in the ashes. But, you know, it is what it is. Now, for the record, I am not saying that Elon running Twitter is worse than Twitter was before. Before, you had this platform that was incredibly censored. It had a very clear political bias. It straight up was working with government agencies to remove certain people off the platform. Like, this is well documented at this point. Old Twitter, not good. Don't like old Twitter. But old Twitter at least had one benefit, where it worked. The platform functioned. New Twitter, you know, let's see what's trending right now. Because last time I looked at trending, it was, yeah, there was some fun tags trending. Nothing, okay, these are actually normal tags for once. Holy shit, this ruins my entire plan. Seattle, cyber attack, Elon, deep dungeon, more Seattle, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, sure, okay. We have one tag that maybe wouldn't have trended before. Maybe it would have. I don't know. People don't like Nancy Pelosi anyway. But you have the option of platform that censors but works, or platform that doesn't censor, unless you're the people that post the public data to Elon's jet, but doesn't work. Which of these is better? I don't actually know. To be fair, I don't really know. You can say one or the other, but I think they're both pretty shit. It's like, you go from bad to worse, and which one is bad and which one is worse is entirely up to you. Neither of these is good. Neither of these is a good state for the platform. Maybe, you know, working and not the heavy censorship, if we bring those two things together, that will be good. Maybe Twitter 2.0 will do that. It's possible. He might fire the entire team and replace them with a whole new team that doesn't know anything about Twitter, but at least knows how to delete the Git repo. And then the entire... Oh my god, I just realized something. If he does try to rewrite the stack, Oh my god, if Elon does want to see the entire Twitter stack rewritten, imagine how much of a shit show that would be. Like, that's gonna be deployed straight to the live environment, and it is going to break everything. Like, there is not going to be a Twitter if they try to rewrite the entire stack. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is. But, I guess that would be up to you to decide. Yeah. Let's talk about something that makes me very tilted. God of War 1. So, I recently finished my playthrough of God of War 1 for the PS2. It is a... God of War 1 is a very fun game, right? I want to make that clear. You should go back and play God of War 1. The fucking problem with God of War 1 is the game has such a bad ending segment. So, this game has no idea what difficulty scaling is. There's maybe like, I think it's 3 bosses. Yeah, it's 3 bosses throughout the game. And when you hit each of these bosses, the difficulty goes like, so we're going from like this and whoop, and then back down and whoop, and back down and whoop, fucking through the absolute ceiling, but then back down. So, the early bosses are fine. Like, the Hydra boss teaches you how the game works. It's supposed to be difficult. You're like 5 minutes into the game. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't even understand how block mechanics work, but it teaches you how that works. Then you go eventually to the Minotaur boss. I fucking hate the Minotaur boss. Luckily, you can cheese the boss by standing up on the upper ledge, but the final segment, when you're fighting, this is going to spoil God of War 1, 20-year-old game. You fight Ares. It's not a spoiler, because it's literally set up at the start of the game. You fight Ares. Now, first stage Ares is difficult, but mostly difficult because the game doesn't actually teach you how to block most of the way through. It probably made more sense if I was playing it back in God of War 1, 2005, 2001. I think it's 2005, but I'm not sure. God of War 1. Wait, maybe I'm thinking of DMC 1 that's 2001. Yeah, God of War 1 is 2005. So, first stage of fighting Ares, most of the annoyance, it comes down to the way I was blocking. And the way I was blocking is sort of based around more modern gaming, like Dark Souls. So when you block an attack, you can, like, do a counter to parry sort of thing. When I was doing the blocks, I was, like, tapping the button when the attack came in. You don't have to do that. I didn't realize this. You can actually just hold down the button, and it will block the attack. Same with things like getting... some of the enemies will have, like, a fire breath, for example, and Ares does this. And you can block the entire fire attack, but I didn't realize this. I thought you'd, like, tap a bunch of times to block the attack. I've constantly been hit by it and didn't realize what the problem was. But once I learned that, the rest of the fight was pretty easy. Now, it was easy until you get to the second stage. Second stage is the worst designed thing I think I've ever seen. So, your wife and kid or something, I don't fucking care, are being attacked by a bunch of clones of Kratos. And you as the real Kratos have to fight the clones while making sure their health doesn't run out. If you want to heal them, you can hug them and transfer your life essence or something over to them. The problem is this segment goes on way too long. So you start in this house, and then the house sort of like crumbles away, and the floor crumbles away. If it crumbles away when you're standing on it, you die. And you go back to the start. But the floor crumbles away, and you're left with this tiny arena. And these clones of Kratos will spawn, and they spawn for like a good 5-10 minute segment. And it's not like 1 or 2. Like, there are bits where you're fighting like 5 or 10 at a time, and they will all attack your family at the same time. So you can have your wife go from full health to like a quarter health in a second. So you never want them to be anywhere near your family. So the strat that I found, and if I didn't have at least a little bit of magic left, I would never have done this. I just spammed Rage of the Gods, Poseidon's Wrath, and Army of Hades. And this got me through. But it took me about an hour on this one segment. And it fucking made me so... I was so annoyed. I was actually getting ready to, drop the game and never play God of War again for the rest of my life. It was so bad. I have never seen a segment of a game that was so poorly thought through. And considering earlier aspects of the game, I feel like it was designed in this way to be annoying. So there are a lot of cases where the game will put intentionally annoying enemies grouped up together. So you have these big ogre-looking dudes that have a big hammer, which is annoying as hell. You can't block it, you have to dodge, but it'll also spawn these little dogs. And the dogs, when they turn to big dogs, turn into Cerberus. But they can also, spit out babies from their mouth. So they're literally a mob spawning more mobs, and you have to kill them when they are small, otherwise you will never kill them. It is such a bad enemy, but mixing these two together is so much worse. Or when they have, a room of Medusas, and if they use their stare ability, because Medusa can turn things to stone. If they stare at you long enough, then you turn to stone. But if they're multiple staring at you, you turn to stone quicker. And if they attack you when you're turned to stone, you instantly die. Doesn't matter how much health you have, instantly die. Things like that is really annoying. And this room, I feel like, was designed in that same sort of fashion, where it was designed to just piss you off and make you hate the game. Because at this point, there was 10 minutes of the game actually left over. So I eventually got through this segment, and I was like, oh god, it's gonna get so much worse. This is gonna be awful, I'm gonna die, what's gonna happen? And then on the second try, I beat the final boss. So first stage took me about 30 to 45 minutes, just because I was bad at blocking. Second stage, at least an hour, maybe an hour 10. Third stage, done basically straight away. So third stage, you actually couldn't die in the same way. So your health bar was linked with Ares. So as you did more damage, Ares lost health. If he did damage to you, you would lose health. So it's this sort of tug of war, and the goal is to make Ares run out of health, and then you can do your big finisher. That section was fine. Totally fine. No issue whatsoever. I did have some issues with the blocking feeling a little bit funky. But I don't know if that was just me, or the game just straight up being a bit funky. Either way, it was annoying. But overall, I think you should go back and play God of War 1. It's a really fun game that, for the most part, has aged pretty well. You know how you go play a lot of PS2 action games. It's not just PS2 games in general. There's some PS2 games that age really well, Most Wanted, fucking great game. But go and play a PS2 action game. A lot of action games aged a little bit rough. Yeah, a little bit rough is probably a good way to put it. But God of War 1, you can see that it changed throughout the games, and obviously really changed when they did the reboot of the series. But God of War 1 set the foundation for what God of War 2, 3, and Ghost of Sparta, and there might be another game, went ahead to do. It's worth playing. Unlike Devil May Cry 1. Devil May Cry 1 is not a good video game. You should not play Devil May Cry 1, it's awful. You should not play Devil May Cry 2, it's much better than Devil May Cry 1, but still very awful. I'm going to play Devil May Cry 3 very soon. From my understanding, 3 is where the series actually gets good. Devil May Cry 1 is Resident Evil, but Dante is in it. Because it used to be a Resident Evil game, and then they decided, hey, we want to make this new thing from it. There's no combo, like, there's like maybe a couple of little combos, but not the combo system that Devil May Cry is sort of known to be. That just didn't exist when Devil May Cry 1 and 2 happened. But God of War 1, like, you have the Blades of Chaos. You can do your grabs. You can throw your blades out, smack someone down. You have all of these spells. You have all of this stuff where it exists in the later games, and yeah, they do change things up, especially 3. They change the way grabs work, and the way that throws work, but it's still the game that you expected. Like, it's a lot, in many ways similar to, like, Kingdom Hearts 1, where Kingdom Hearts 1 set up the foundation for what Kingdom Hearts was going to be. Is it everything the game is going to have? No. But that basic foundation of, you have your command menu, use X to attack, they weren't reaction commands in the same way in the first game, but you did have things like Ragnarok and Ars Arcanum, things like that. Those were all there, and like the guarding, blocking, I said guarding and blocking, they're the same. Guarding or blocking and dodge rolling, all there. DMC 1 was not like that. I know I keep saying that, but like, just don't play DMC 1. I know there's going to be some fans of DMC 1 who are like, DMC 1 is a great game. You don't be so mean to DMC 1. It's not a good game. It's not a good game. You can't even call it a good game because of when it came out. In 2001, that was when Final Fantasy X came out. So, like, this... like, I don't care that you might like Devil May Cry 1. Like, it came out at the same time as fucking Final Fantasy X. Your game is bad. Actually, I want to just... I'll check that. I'm pretty sure FF10 was 2001. Yes. Yes. Yes, it was. Also, FF10 looks fucking incredible. It still looks good today. This is a 22-year-old game. And it still looks good today, which is ridiculous. It is a bit washed out, but, you know... yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I don't know what I was gonna go straight into God of War 2 on my stream. I don't know what I'm gonna do now, though. Like, I was so tilted by God of War 1. I feel like I just want to play something else, and then go back to God of War. Maybe I'll go play, like, KH Birth by Sleep. I want to do the Yakuza series, so maybe I'll go do, like, maybe do, like, Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami or something. I own Like a Dragon as well, so maybe I'll go do that. I don't know. I could just go straight into God of War 2 and stop being a bitch, but that's a later problem. That's a later problem. Either way, what's gonna happen is when FF16 comes out, that's gonna be my focus. No matter what I'm doing, FF16 is taking my absolute priority. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there was a recent gameplay video that came out from IGN. We're gonna mute the audio because I don't actually care about it. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll turn the audio on in important parts. But, skip ahead. So, for anyone who doesn't know, FF16, their combat director, is the combat director who fucking worked on Devil May Cry 5. And if you're just listening to this section, you need to, like, watch what the combat in this game actually looks like. Like, Final Fantasy hasn't had turn-based... I know there's, like, people are like, there's no direction for Final Fantasy combat. Turn-based combat is over. It's real-time action. The last fucking turn-based Final Fantasy game was FF... technically 12 in some ways, but, like, 10? The last turn-based Final Fantasy was 20 years ago. Ever since then, there's been, like, these hybrid systems, like FF13 with their fucking action bar thingy, where it had a turn-based interface, but it was real time. The enemies could attack you. You wanted to like time things like that. FF14 is, well, FF14. FF11 is, well, another MMO. FF15 was full real time, but the real time combat was bad. This is not bad. Like, this is just Devil May Cry meets Final Fantasy. It's very flashy and is hyper compressed seeing it on YouTube. But even so, what we're seeing on the screen right now is Clive the main character, yeah. Clyde? No, it's Clive. Fighting Garuda, who is the primal, the wind primal. But even when it's just fighting like regular dudes, it just looks so hype. Now, obviously, it's sort of throwing away a lot of the like tactical, plan things out style of combat that existed in things like 10. But that, as I said, that's been dead for so long. Like, FF13 had a bit of that, and many of the combat segments, you would want to set up abilities, things like that. But FF15 had none of that. FF15 was just, bash man with sword. Okay, sword don't do much damage. Bash with, other sword. Bash with, or shoot with gun. Use magic. Like, that was the extent of the tactics in FF15. So I don't care if you get rid of tactical combat in favor of full real-time and, like, hyper-fast movement. But there is something really interesting happening with the way this game works. So, Yoshi P, director of FF14, director of FF16 now, he wants to make the game really accessible for long-time Final Fantasy fans. So, even though this is going, like, full real-time, he's adding in this, like, progressive difficulty slider. So, a lot of games are starting to do this, probably in part because the Souls games made it so popular, but not having difficulty as an explicit option, but having it as, like, a part of the gameplay. So you actually have the ability to get these rings, and these rings basically make the game a cakewalk. So there's a ring for, like, auto-dodging. There is a ring to just make the game select what the most optimal attack is in the current situation, and all you have to do is just press the attack button. So, press the attack button similar like Kingdom Hearts, for example. And there's a ring to... I want to say there's a ring to manage your pet. So you don't really have, like, a party system that you can control, but like FF15, there is a party, and you can kind of, like, you can manage them to do certain things. In this case, you have your dog, and your dog can, like, heal you, things like that, attack, and there's a ring that will let the game decide what best to do with the dog. And a couple of extra rings that all give you these, like, ways to choose to make the game easier. The downside is you actually take up ring slots to equip other accessories. So you can't make your character as strong, but you make the game considerably easier. And this is, I think, a good way to handle difficulty. Now, when I was talking about Dark Souls, like, the Souls games, people were like, oh, they're so hard, Souls games are difficult, blah, blah, blah. Like, Souls games have had a progressive difficulty slider since fucking Demon Souls. Like, you can choose how do you want to make the game easier. Do you want to use, pine resin and do electric damage to the enemy? Do you want to go and summon? Do you want to summon people or summon a AI summon? Do you want to go and use the Zweihander in Dark Souls 1 and kill everything? Because the Zweihander is broken and ridiculously powerful. Do you want to go and get the sword from the dragon and have this weapon that is broken until you get to Seath the Scaleless? Like, all of these little things just make the game easier without, or, using a shield. Do you want to dodge roll, or do you want to use a shield? Do you want to block, or do you want to go and parry things? These little things aren't an explicit, like, easy, normal, hard, extra hard. kill yourself mode, but these are things that can make the game harder. And like in the other direction, you can start the game as, I don't know what Elden Ring calls it. I actually can't remember what it's called in Dark Souls. What's the homeless class? Dark Souls 1 classes. What is the homeless class called? The Deprived, yeah, that one. You can run around with a fucking wooden club and wooden shield with no armor on. Like, that's an option. It's absolutely an option. And it's great. Like, it's great that this exists. Actually, was that Dark Souls 3? No, it's Dark Souls 1. Okay. But, like, every Souls game has a homeless class you can choose. Elden Ring has it. Bloodborne has it. Yeah. So you can make the game harder for yourself, or you can make it easier. This is a good way to handle difficulty. The only thing I don't like about this system is it's not sort of explicitly clear that you can do that. Like, it's not explicitly clear that Pine Resin exists, or, you know, obviously a shield exists, that makes sense, but, like, what summons can do for you, who the best summon is, things like that, whether it's better to use a human or an AI summon. But having these rings in the game, I think, is a good way to handle it. And I'm not going to play with them. I might use, like, the dog one, because I don't want to micromanage the dog. But, like, I'm not going to use the auto dodge or the auto attack, things like that. But if you want to, and you want to make the game easier while still experiencing the story, I think that's good. I believe the game is going to have, like, a new game plus with an actual hard mode. But, yeah, I think this is just a good idea to handle it. I know some games recently are also having, like, a story mode difficulty, where it's, you know, just everything dies in one hit. You basically can't die. I believe Hogwarts had this. I want to say it did. I could be wrong. But this is also a way that difficulty can be handled. I just don't like the idea of having a difficulty option that... I don't like the idea of a hard... Not hard as in, like, a hard difficulty. Like, a hard set difficulty. I like it to be adjustable as you get more comfortable in the game. So whether that's the way a Souls game does it, whether that's, you know, just being able to adjust the difficulty, I think they have their advantages and their disadvantages. The advantage of the explicit difficulty option is it's a lot easier to sort of know what the result of each difficulty change is going to be. Like, if you have an easy mode and a hard mode, and in the easy mode, enemies have, you know, 25% less damage and one less move in their attack pool, things like that, that's a lot easier to understand than, okay, if we include AI summons and Pine Resin and we farm out Titanite shards and do all these other things, what sort of difference that is going to make. If that makes any sense. Or, like, you know, Dark Souls 1, you choose the key at the start of the game, you go grab Havel's armor, and then nothing can stagger you. That's another option you get. You can't roll, but you can just walk through attacks and nothing will stagger you. I like the Souls way of doing it. I really do. And I hope more games like FF16 are going to be doing that. The only issue I have with FF16 is it is going to be exclusive to the PS5 for 6 months, I want to say. Which means when I want to play it, I will have to buy a PS5. I was going to anyway, but... Because there are a couple of games I want to play, like, you know, Demon Souls. I was going to say a couple of games. That's pretty much... There's like 1 or 2 games. There are so few games now that are exclusive that I really want to play. Oh! Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok. That is currently exclusive to the PS5, but will eventually, probably, like with 2018, make its way to the PC. Yeah. Oh, the other thing about FF16's combat is... So there's going to be these big fights where you are fighting... Yeah, is this it? Yeah. So there's going to be, like, these big fucking kaiju fight sort of things. So Clive can turn into Ifrit, and there will be cases where you will actually have to fight other primals. The one they show is Ifrit versus Garuda, and it's it very much is just like a monster battle, but the idea is the different primals you're going to be fighting are going to have different feels to them. So, like, you know, in the Garuda fight, like, you drag fucking Garuda's face across the ground and you tear off Garuda's limbs. But Garuda is, like, fairly fairly skinny, fairly like flimsy. So like this makes sense in this fight, but the other fights are going to be very different. Like when you're fighting Odin, Odin is considerably smaller than Ifrit. When you're fighting Bahamut, when you're fighting what's another one that I know isn't going to be in the game? Shiva. When you're fighting I don't know if you're going to fight Ramu because your friend is him. Maybe you fight him, but you will be fighting Titan at some point. Like, these are all gonna, especially Titan, because Titan is just a big fucking dude made of rock. Like, you don't have the same style of fight. That's probably gonna be more of like, I would imagine more of a boxing match in that case. But even though they're not like crazy combat, so when you're in the big spectacle primal fights, your combat system is much more simplified. So you have your attack, you have a fireball, a lunge, and evade. It's not like you have this full combo system that's crazy. It's much simpler. But these are supposed to be more like, they're kind of like an interactive cutscene, as opposed to an actual boss fight sort of thing. The boss fights are when you are Clive. And like, in this case, the one in here, there's one in here where you're fighting Garuda while you're small. Here? Yeah, so Clive is still in his human form, but he's fighting Garuda. Like, this is the actual boss fight, and then the other part is sort of like an interactive cutscene, just showing off how cool this is. There was another part in here that was also really cool, where Yoshi P learned a bit from his work on FF14. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Fighting these little Garuda, I guess. I can't remember what they're called, but like fighting these little Garudas. And you might notice there, but it does sort of like an MMO thing where there are these markers on the ground. And if you stand in the markers, you get hurt. So it sort of expects you to like move around the arena in a certain way to avoid these attacks. You generally don't see it as explicit as this when you're playing a single player RPG. Yeah, there's going to be things you have to dodge that the enemies are going to be doing, but usually you don't have fucking orange markers, in this case a green marker on the ground, telling you don't stand in the green marker. But there's no reason why this can't exist in a single player RPG. And I think it's just cool that it does. As you can tell, I'm very, I don't want to be excited for this game. Like, that's the thing. Because FF15 was... FF15. Yeah. FF13 was really good. And then you get to the open world segment. And then it wasn't. I still have not finished FF13. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point, but man... When I got to the open world segment, the game just lost all interest to me. But knowing that Yoshi P is directing this, knowing the DMC5 combat director is on this, knowing that Soken is doing the music, at a bare minimum, okay, at a bare fucking minimum, the music is gonna be god tier. Like, there is zero doubt in my mind the music is going to be incredible. The music we've heard so far has all been great. If you don't know, Soken is the guy who did the music on FF14. And 14 has some fucking bangers. And considering that a lot of the primals in this are also in 14, and they're based off the 14 version of the primal, I know there are some remixes of 14 music in 16, which has me very, very excited, because oh my god, I love Garuda's music. I love all of the primal music, but there are some tracks in there which are really good, and curious, but apprehensively so, that this game is going to be good. I want it to be good. I really do. But I don't want to be disappointed by it. Like, that's the thing. As much as I want to have an incredibly good Final Fantasy game, and I think Yoshi P said this in one of the interviews he did, he wants Final Fantasy to go back to being, like, this must-buy game. Like, most people out there who are around my age played FF7. They played maybe FF8. They played FF9. They played FF10. But how many people do you know that are like, yeah, I love FF12? What about FF13? FF13 too. Lightning Returns. 14 is an exception. FF15. Like, ever since those early Final Fantasy games, obviously 10 is not early, it's fucking 10 entries into the series, along with all the spin-offs that were along the way. But, like, anyone who has any interest in RPGs can tell you, like, how great some of those older games are. And this is shown by the fact of, like, how well FF7 Remake is done. People love those older Final Fantasy games, but there just hasn't been that, like, mainstream appeal of Final Fantasy for a very long time. Probably since FF10. Because we're not going to talk about 10 too. No, we're definitely not going to talk about 10 too. It's not going to happen. And Yoshi P wants it to go back to being, like, a must-buy game. Like, there is a new Final Fantasy game. It is the game that if I'm going to get one game this year, that's the game I want to get. He wants it to be up there with, you know, a Souls game, up there with what God of War is doing right now, up there with these massive titles that everybody wants to play. Maybe they don't have the money to play it right now and buy a copy right now, but is this lagging? No, maybe. I don't know. I'll check it later. But they're going to play it at some point, and they're going to enjoy it. And hey, if he achieves that, that's great. That just means more great video games to play. Especially great games that are probably very long. Actually, one other thing is what Yoshi P said about JRPGs. He actually doesn't like the term JRPG. Kind of feels like it's sort of an offensive term, belittles what the game really is. Like, when you say JRPG, there are certain ideas that appear in your head. Let's give you some examples. What do we have here? Yep, that'll work. What's another good example? What's another great example? Yep, that'll work. Yep, that'll work as well. Do we have anything else over here? Ah, here we go. So, when you say JRPG, I'm sure that was great content, by the way. When you say JRPG, you know, here are some games that might just fit that description pretty well. This is Atelier Firis, okay? Let me show you Atelier Firis. Atelier Firis. So, show me a picture of gameplay. Combat. If I look at Atelier Firis combat, that'll get us somewhere. Here we go. See, YouTube video? That'll work. So, Atelier Firis. This is... Oh, YouTube broke. Yeah, it's broken. Everything's breaking today. So here we go. It is a turn-based RPG. You have your action system, a skill system. There's a cute anime girl. The game is fucking really long. You know, like, I think I've spent a good... probably a good 50, 60, 70 hours playing it. We have other games, like this is Atelier Sophie. To be fair, they're games in the same franchise, so you should kind of expect them to be fairly similar. Atelier Sophie gameplay. Let's go combat specifically so we have something similar. Here we go. I guess this is Sophie too, but it also works. They're basically the same system. So you're fighting a bat, you know, you got a cute anime girl. Okay, there's, guess a cute anime boy as well. All that fun stuff. Here is Shining Resonance Refrain. Why the fuck did that appear? Shining Resonance Refrain. It is a turn-based RPG. It's very long. Has a cute anime girl in it. This is Tales of Berseria. It's a very long game, a cute anime girl. In many ways, like, when you say the term JRPG, like, this is the sort of things you think of. Maybe you think of, you know, other games like FF7, you have Cloud, but, like, you've got this idea in your head when someone says JRPG. Like, generally you think, oh, this game's gonna be, like, 60, 70, 80 hours long. It's gonna involve a lot of grinding. It's probably gonna have some cute anime girls in it. It's gonna... is going to have a bunch of side quests that simply don't matter, but they're kind of there to pad out the game. The world map is probably going to be a little bit too big and maybe a bit obtuse to explore. But Yoshi kind of feels like when he's making a game, he's not trying to make a JRPG. It's not trying to be like an RPG that is Japanese. It just happens to be an RPG made by a Japanese studio. Like, when someone says... Actually, here's a great example. Okay? So... Dark Souls. This is a copy of Dark Souls 3. This is made by a Japanese studio. But, does anybody say that Dark Souls is a JRPG? No, because... It's Dark Souls. Like, it's not trying to be a Japanese game. It is a game that happens to be made by a Japanese studio. Like, these are very clearly different things, but they're both made by Japanese studios. And that's sort of the distinction that Yoshi wants to sort of see go away. He doesn't want to see Final Fantasy considered as a JRPG series. He wants it to be an RPG first, and then sort of get rid of that baggage that makes some people kind of afraid of trying it out. And I fully support this goal. If more people are going to play it, and you want to just... You're not trying to design something around that idea, go right ahead. Like... After the last couple of entries in the Final Fantasy series, something needs to fucking be done to revive this franchise and give it a bit of, like, you know, a bit of oomph, a bit of push ahead that makes people care about it again. Like, there were so many things I didn't like about FF15, and every time I hear Yoshi P talk about FF16, it's almost like he knows exactly what everybody who, you know, played the game knows is wrong with the game. It's like he actually played the game and knows why it's so bad. Like, it's an open world game, and open world games are fine. The problem is, there's nothing in it. It's just open world, it's just big, and waste your time. Like, there are segments of FF15 where you just sit in a car for 10 minutes for no reason. At all. Why? Why does this need to be here? Just make the map smaller. It's good. I don't care that it's not, like, very high fantasy like some of the Final Fantasy games. That doesn't bother me. I don't care that you can be like, it takes place in Kansas, and it pretty much does. But there's just so many parts of FF15 that just waste your time that didn't need to be there. And I'm so happy that 16 is not going to be open world. It's not going to have all this bullshit. It's going to be focused on telling a good story, having great combat, looking fucking beautiful, and doing it in a stylized way. Like, that's the other thing about 15. 15, it is just trying to go for, like, sort of realistic looking characters, but loses the flair that a Final Fantasy game had. Like, go back, actually just go play 14. Like, you look at 14, you're like, yes, this is Final Fantasy. I understand this. You go back and play 10, you look at 7 Remake. All of these things have like a style to it that screams fantasy, that screams, in most cases, screams Final Fantasy. And I don't think 15 had that. And I'm, once again, apprehensive, but I want to be excited for what's going on with this game. But let's just move on from that before I spend another 20 minutes saying the exact same thing. So I saw this article and I just had to mention it. Man fined for using council power to charge e-vehicle. So this absolute fucking legend, and that's what he is. He is a fucking legend. Has his electric car, which I'm not sure what it is just by this side. I'm sure someone who knows more about cars can tell me what this car specifically is. Needed to charge his car and found a power box on the side of the road and decided, I wonder if I can plug something in there. These exist, so like, workers on the road, things like that can like power their tools. Not for people to plug their car into it. But, this man said, fuck it, let's charge it anyway. This happened up at Mount Barker, about 363 kilometers southeast of Perth. Why even mention how far it is away from Perth if it's 363 kilometers away? Either way, happened at Mount Barker. 78-year-old Cranbrook man using the power box to top up his e-vehicle. Police subsequently charged the man with stealing and fined him $500. It's illegal in WA, Western Australia, to charge an e-vehicle in public anywhere but an approved service point. Mount Barker police used their Twitter account on Tuesday evening to make an example of the man. To clarify, here we go. To clarify, if you want to recharge your e-vehicle, don't steal the electricity to do so. Police will prosecute in every instance. This recharge cost the vehicle owner a $500 fine for stealing from the Shire. Be better. No, I don't think be better. I think this man is an absolute fucking legend, and I fully support what he has done here. I absolutely love this. Some said the incident showed why e-vehicles weren't a viable option in regional area. Actually, that's a good point. If this is up at Mount Barker, let me just... Mount Barker. Right, there's fucking... I forgot there's two Mount Barkers. There's Mount Barker in South Australia. Wait, is this the same Mount Barker or is it a different Mount Barker? Give me a second. No, there is two Mount Barkers. I thought maybe it was on the border. No, there's just two Mount Barkers. Why are there two Mount Barkers? Anyway, if you're in Mount Barker, let's have a look. WA electric car recharge. Okay. An interactive map of WA's electric vehicle recharge stations. Can I see the map? Are you going to show me the map? Here we go. Okay. So, Mount Barker is... I'll show you the map when I can actually find it. Mount Barker, WA. Okay, so... Where on a map is this? So that's near Kendenup. It's above Redmond. Oh, it's way down south near... Okay. So, here we go. So, it is down here. Okay, here's Albany. Yeah, here we go. Here's Mount Barker. So, there is a recharge point in the Mount in the Mount Barker city, town center, and then I guess there's one in like Kendenup. But if you're going up like Forest Hill here, up through Rock Gully, like there's nothing. Or like you're heading over this way up to like the Sterling Range National Park, and like I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Or like through, let's say you're past these points here in Albany, you're going up through Wellstead, Gardner. Like, I see why he would want to recharge here. There is a lot of recharge points, but there are also massive points here where if you need a recharge, like, you're gonna fucking get a recharge wherever you can. Look, I fully support the man fucking stealing some electricity. If he wants to steal some electricity from the government, go right the fuck ahead. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Also, I think this is a government vehicle. Like, I know we use these... I can't remember what the car is, but I'm pretty sure we use this same model as government vehicle in SA. I wouldn't be surprised if this is someone using a government car. We can't see his plates, so we can't be certain. I don't see a government sticker on here, but sometimes they're on the other side as well. Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's great. I promote stealing electricity from the government, but unless the government's listening to this, in which case I don't promote stealing. Don't steal. Stealing is bad. Yeah. Anyway, ray tracing. Ray tracing. So a while back, I talked about ray tracing coming to Linux in the form of Wayland. And I didn't really think it was gonna, you know, be ready that far, that soon. And then it was. And now it definitely is. So, ray tracing is now available in Doom Eternal on the Steam Deck. Now, do you want to ray trace on a Steam Deck that is using an AMD GPU that is already fairly low-powered hardware? No. But you can. Let's see what the comments are saying. Do I really want ray tracing on such a medium-powered device? I tried it and I'm not completely convinced. I prefer to have it disabled and gain some FPS. Probably for the best. Like, if they wanted to have an NVIDIA-based Steam Deck, makes sense. But I really don't think that ray tracing on this device is a good idea. I like that they're, like, working on ray tracing, and it's great for general Linux desktop use. And it's great that it is an option for those weirdos that want to use it. But you shouldn't want to use it. Not on a Steam Deck. The Steam Deck already struggles enough with certain games. Doom Eternal actually runs pretty well on everything. Like, Doom Eternal is just a fucking well-optimized game. So, it's one of the games where you actually might legitimately be able to use it. But I know that Hogwarts Legacy, for example, supports ray tracing. You don't want to use ray tracing in that game. Not on a fucking Steam Deck, but definitely just... Not even generally. The game is so poorly optimized that it's just not a good idea in the first place. You could. Look, there's nothing stopping you doing it. I would advise it. Like many things, I would advise against it. But I'm not going to stop you. I have no ability to do so. So if you want to do something stupid, be my guest. I don't know where this is really going to go, if they're going to keep trying to, like, get support working for other games on the Steam Deck, or if this is just, like, a test. I know there is some stuff that was being worked on a while back, but I'm not really sure how far they're going to go with this. Maybe this is indicating some stuff that will be cool on a Steam Deck 2. Or maybe a Steam Deck 1 just being sold in fucking Australia. I hope that when the Steam Deck 2 comes out, if they do a Steam Deck 2, or whatever they do, they actually do sort of better handle the worldwide accessibility. Because there are still so many places right now where You can't buy it unless you want to, like, go through a scalper or do, like, a parcel forwarding service, which neither of those things, especially the first one, sounds, too great. So, yeah, hopefully whenever a Steam Deck 2 happens, yeah, you can actually order it from Valve, and they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna send it to Australia, we'll give you some Australian power outlets, things like that, rather than as it is now. Because even if I bought, like, an American unit, I would need to use, like, a plug converter. I don't like that. I don't like it. But, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of things I don't like, Arch Linux. More specifically, bootloading with Arch Linux. So, there was a problem that happened recently. I don't dual boot. What am I fucking saying? Dual boot with Arch Linux. There was a problem that I talked about on the main channel probably a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago. I don't know, whenever you're seeing this. About a problem happening with dual boot. But not a problem necessarily caused by Arch Linux. It's caused by other distros not doing things correctly. So there is a function of the kernel called EFI handover protocol. As the name would suggest, it is used on an EFI system. Now, EFI handover protocol has sort of no basis in the UEFI spec. It was kind of a hack put in place about 10 years ago by the kernel team to make things run faster and all that fun stuff. None of the bootloaders actually went and implemented it, with the exception of SysLinux and Red Hat, who made a set of patches available to use in Grub. So, EFI handover protocol since then has been enabled in the Linux kernel. Nothing used it though. At least nothing officially used it with the upstream Grub. Very recently, like a week or so ago, it was marked not only as deprecated, it was also marked as optional, so now you can actually disable it and not have to use it. Arch Linux disabled it, and the reason they disabled it is, you know, Grub upstream wasn't using it anyway, so why should it be enabled? The problem is, even though Grub upstream wasn't using it, Grub upstream was not actually the default version of Grub. That it had actually sort of been, like, replaced by, like, a soft fork of Grub. So these Red Hat patches were actually being used by Ubuntu, by Fedora, by OpenSUSE, by all of these other distros, and a fork of Grub effectively became the default, like a soft fork. So every other distro was using these patches that allowed EFI handover protocol to be used. Arch wasn't. Arch decided that they were going to disable EFI handover protocol in their kernel. Now, you would think that if EFI handover protocol is not supported, then Grub would just fall back to doing some other method. It didn't. So if EFI handover protocol is not present, it was erroring out, being like, EFI handover protocol is not available. Unable to load the kernel. Please load the kernel first. And this would happen every time you tried to boot the Arch kernel. But because of it happening because of this, it's this weird issue where it's technically Arch's fault, but technically not. Because if you use the Arch version of Grub, the problem didn't happen, because Arch's version of Grub didn't require the EFI handover protocol. So it would launch, you know, the Ubuntu kernel, the Fedora kernel, the OpenSUSE kernel, and it would also launch the Arch kernel. But if you use the bootloader from Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE, I'm saying it like this to annoy people, if you use that version of Grub, that would not boot the Arch kernel. So the solution to this is use the version of Grub available from the Arch repos. But a lot of people had no idea that there would ever be a problem with this, and their dual boots just completely broke. They had to, like, you know, chmod in, roll back the kernel, do all this fun stuff to actually get a working system. At this stage, I believe the Arch team is just going to leave it as is, because, you know, dual booting, it's one of those places where a lot of people might do it, but nobody officially supports it. So, do you help make dual booting better because a lot of people use it, or do you just not? Because there's not really any drawback in adding the protocol back. All they would have to do is change one line in the kernel config, which by default actually does have it enabled, because the kernel team did realize how important it was to have it enabled, even though, you know, the upstream projects don't actually use it. So they left it enabled. Arch probably should just go and re-enable it. Like, that just makes the most sense, at least to me. Maybe they have a reason for wanting to get rid of it. But the only reason I can see for them wanting to do so is they don't use it on Arch, so it doesn't need to be here. But they actually do. So there is one bootloader where it relies on the EFI handover protocol. That bootloader being SysLinux. Now, SysLinux is a very dead project, and you shouldn't be using it. It was last updated 3 years ago. I know there's some people that are like, oh, but I use a fucking 10-year-old system. I love SysLinux. I'm sure you do. But you're in the tiny, tiny minority. The regular people out there not using e-waste as their computer, these people, you know, are using things like grub, using system deboot, things like that. So, if I hand over protocol on single boot grub, on single boot Arch, doesn't matter. But SysLinux requires it, so by getting rid of this, SysLinux completely breaks with UEFI systems. Now, there are some people out there who don't even realize that SysLinux does support UEFI. It does, but you shouldn't use it. Even when it was working, you shouldn't use it. Arch, Linux, SysLinux, because I want to say there is a bunch of features that don't work. UEFI. Yeah, here we go. Limitations of UEFI SysLinux. Using tab to edit kernel parameters in UEFI SysLinux might lead to garbage display, text on top of one another. Bug report, which will never be fixed because the project is dead. UEFI SysLinux does not support chain loading other EFI applications, like UEFI Shell or Windows Boot Manager. This page is never going to load. Never going to load whatsoever. In some cases, UEFI SysLinux might not boot in some virtual machines like QEMU or VirtualBox or some VMware products / versions. You just listed everything. You just listed everything that people care about. And in some UEFI emulation environments like Duet, a SysLinux contributor has confirmed no such issue present on VMware Workstation 10.02 and SysLinux 6.02 or later. Memdisk is not available for UEFI. All of these things do not work if you are using UEFI with SysLinux. So don't do that. Use anything else. Use Refined, use Grub, use System Deboot. Don't use SysLinux. If you are using UEFI, don't. If you're using e-waste as a computer, maybe. Unless that's a UEFI system, in which case, don't. But if you're running e-waste as your computer, you don't really need UEFI anyway. Like, the benefits of UEFI don't even really matter at that point. So just, fuck it, whatever. Doesn't matter, just do whatever you want. It is what it is. But, yeah. Every so often, there's just something that breaks with Arch that is always fun to talk about. Because even though Arch might not be one of the biggest distros out there, obviously it's very popular, but like every time I talk about Arch doing something stupid, everyone can agree that it's just fun to talk about. Everyone can be like, yeah, I don't use Arch, I run Ubuntu, I run Fedora, I run Gentoo. There are some Gentoo man people in my comment section, I love them, they're great. But everybody can just sit back and laugh, wow, Arch is a great project sometimes, but in other cases, you're just like, I don't know how this is managed in such a messy way. Like, I just don't know. But it is what it is. I'm yawning now. The second I turn the camera off, here's what's gonna happen, right? This happens so often. The second I turn the camera off, I am no longer tired. I am wide awake, and everything is just good to go. Which is annoying. I would like to be wide awake when I am, trying to make the videos and trying to make the podcast, but it doesn't happen like that all the time. So, yeah. Also, this is a golf ball, in case you're wondering. I like to fiddle with stuff. I should get myself, I had a fidget spinner at one point. I didn't have it because I like to fiddle with things. I just got it because fidget spinners are a meme. But I should get myself a fidget cube. And if I did that, my videos would be even more annoying. Like, if you wonder why I move my hands around, I don't like my hands being still. So, if I had something like that, I would just be playing with it during the middle of a fucking video. It would be even more annoying. Because not only would my hands be moving around, now you'd be hearing, like... I don't know why my hands are doing that, but, it's like a tapping effect or something. Yeah, so that's why I moved the hands. No, I'm not Italian. Some people seem fucking... I know there's a running joke on the channel. It's like, Brody's Italian, Brody's Amish, Brody's this, Brody's that. No, I'm not. I'm definitely not British as well, so stop with that one. I'm Australian. That's pretty much as exciting as it gets, actually. There's nothing more to it than that. It's just fucking Australian. Yeah, fucking, oh, mate. Oh, mate. I don't know what I'm doing. I hit the point of the podcast where I'm just making shit up and everything is just a mess. No one's watching it at this point anyway, so I can just say whatever, and no one is gonna care. If you're watching right now, comment, Brody is a crackhead, and it probably will get filtered by the YouTube comment detection. But if it doesn't, there's just gonna be a lot of comments, maybe like 3 of them, saying Brody is a crackhead, and that would be funny to me. Anyway, what's the last thing we're going to talk about? I've talked about a lot of stuff on here, haven't I? Budokai Tenkaichi 3. I have never played... Tenkaichi 4, sorry. I have never actually played the Budokai Tenkaichi games, the Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi. But a lot of people are very excited because Tenkaichi 4 just got announced. The last, I want to say Tenkaichi 3 was like 15 years ago. I think that's why everyone's so excited. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was it was a PS2 game and a Wii game. Whoa, look at that. PS2 and Wii. And out like right at the end of the PS2's life cycle. So we'll skip ahead a bit. This is just showing some old Budokai Tenkaichi gameplay. And then it shows Goku doing a transformation into Super Saiyan Blue. Maybe I should, maybe if I'm so tilted by God of War, maybe I should go and play Tenkaichi 3. Just see why everyone's so excited. See why everyone's like, this game is gonna be so great. Tenkaichi 3 was best game ever. I've seen so many people saying this game looks incredible. They're so excited for Tenkaichi 4. I don't know why it's exciting. I don't. Like, as much as I like Dragon Ball and I think it's cool, I genuinely don't know why this is exciting. But hey, if it's exciting, that's good. More games that people can play is always cool. That topic didn't last as long as I thought, because as I said, I have not played it, so I don't really have anything to say. But Goku is my favorite Fortnite character. One more thing I guess we can mention. TikTok. So, besides the whole US trying to ban TikTok, and, taking a very fucking long time to do so, like, every other month, it's like, TikTok is gonna be banned in the US. The US is drafting a bill to ban TikTok. I'm sure maybe it might get banned at some point, possibly. I don't believe it at this stage. If it does get banned, I will be so impressed. This has been, this was started back when Trump was in office. Biden is almost like at the end of his 4-year term, and we're still talking about trying to ban TikTok. Is it actually this difficult to get anything done in the US? Like, this has been a 6-year fucking endeavor from what I can remember. At least a 5-year endeavor to get TikTok banned. Either way, TikTok introduces paywalled content with videos up to 20 minutes long. Creators will be able to put out premium content behind paywall for fans to purchase. Which is certainly an interesting way to handle long videos like that. The company today announced a new program series that allows content creators to make collections of videos that are available for purchase. Each collection can have up to 80 videos in it, and clips can be up to 20 minutes long. A length that feels closer to a YouTube vlog than a bite-sized TikTok. Creators will be able to set their rates from $1 to $109. Why 190? If 190, why not 200? Why not 150? Why 190? I'm sure they A/B tested this number. I'm just so confused why you wouldn't go to, like, a number people expect to be, you know, like a round number. The paywall monetization model is akin to other creator platforms like Patreon and OnlyFans, but content guidelines on TikTok will remain the same. This is, like, I don't use TikTok. I don't know what TikTok creators and TikTok viewers are really asking for from the platform. But I'm curious to see how this would go. Like, TikTok has a massive, massive user base, which in part is probably a big part of the reason why the US wants to ban them. They're probably getting emails from Google and other companies being like, get rid of the Chinese competitor. We can't compete with them. They're stealing all the Zoomers' information. Yep, that's why we're going to ban them. They're stealing the Zoomers' information, so we're the only ones allowed to steal your information, so stop them doing that. Yeah, please, please, please. We're going to give you a lot of money. We'll make you stay in office. Yeah, that's probably a big part of it, to be honest. But I like the option of having extra things that creators can try out just as an option. Maybe it's not going to be the main way that people do things. Maybe most people won't even bother with it. But having something there to potentially try out and, you know, experiment with different content is probably a good thing. I have considered, I was doing my gaming shorts on TikTok for a while. I just didn't get around to continuing to upload them. I probably should go back and do so and just keep it going, not really caring about it all too much. Just let TikTok sort of do its thing. If the TikTok gains any popularity, I guess direct those people over to Twitch, but not really care about the platform. I just don't think it's a great way for most content to be made. Maybe I'm wrong here, because, like, while I am a Zoomer, I am in that, like, barrier between Zoomer and Millennial, where I like the longer form content, but the bite-sized stuff works really well. Like, there are a lot of YouTube shorts I see which are great. Like, anytime you see something from, like, Nile Red, for example, or Hank Green or John Green, I mix them up, but both the Greens make great content. Or, like, Action Lab shorts and all this fun stuff. A lot of my stuff is science stuff or VTuber clips. Like, there's great stuff you see from YouTube shorts, and I would presume the same thing would be TikTok. Not all of it is, you know, fucking dances and memes. Memes are great, but the dances, I don't understand the synchronized dancing thing. It never made any sense to me. I don't really know why it was entertaining. I just didn't get it. That might just be a age thing, because I'm not, you know, 12, but, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, we're closing in on the 2-hour mark, and I have some videos still to edit before I go to work. Like 1 or 2, I don't know. 3? I don't know. I'm not going to edit them all today. And then tomorrow, I guess I'll edit the clips for the podcast and do all the rest of the stuff I need to do. But yeah, that is going to be it for me. So if you like the podcast, go and like it. And if you really like it, I guess you can go join my Patreon, which is probably linked, maybe. I don't know if it's linked, actually. If it isn't, I will make it linked at some point, and then I'll forget to do so. If you want to go watch my main channel, that is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6 days a week. Gaming channel is Brody on Games. I am playing through Hogwarts Legacy, and fucked if I know what else I'm playing right now. Work it out when we get there. And it's a surprise for you. And if you're listening to the audio version of this, the video version is available over on the YouTube at Tech Over Tea. And if you're watching the video version, the audio version is available at Tech Over Tea on pretty much any podcast platform you'll find. There's an RSS feed, chuck it in your favorite app, and you're good to go. So that's gonna be it for me. I am gonna go finish what I need to do and then go to work. So, peace out.